So, as we were saying, this weekend has been advertised as the presence process, but I stopped teaching the presence process over a year ago. It was called the presence process because Omega wanted, to be recognizable. So for those of you that haven't done the presence process or are in the presence process or who have come here because of the presence process, this will be extremely valuable to you. The work has become way more efficient. Remember, this work has been evolving and has become way more efficient through these presentations, through the one-on-ones with people, and through my own ongoing exploration of the emotional body. And I have a much more efficient ways of communicating it. The presence process is an extremely valuable tool, and I'm sure people will be using it for a while, because it is useful when we have very little emotional body awareness, and we don't even know the extent of our emotional dysfunction, our fear, anger, and grief. Most of us don't really know the extent of it. We've lived a life in which we've mastered the ability to suppress and sedate that from our awareness. And so what the emotional body, what the presence process is about, it's a tool. It's really about mining, right? It helps us to go along a very deliberate pathway of awareness and mine the authentic condition of our emotional body, bring our awareness into the authentic condition of our emotional body. And then as that rises up, then what does that look like, and how do we respond to that in a compassionate, responsible, and consistent way? And because when we're opening up the emotional body, it's really, it's very important to be responsible about that. Because this work, although we enter it as something personal, this work isn't personal. It's not personal at all. When we enter the emotional body and we start to realize, in other words, we use our real eyes, because in this work we speak of 3 sets of eyes. We have our physical eyes, which we observe and interact with the world of form. Then we have our anal eyes, which we use to analyze everything, which is the mental body. And then we have our real eyes, through which we are able to realize truth, right? And the real eyes are really what this work is about. It's about awakening the real eyes. Until when we enter this work, most of us enter the work out of discomfort. If we're like everybody else, we enter what we think of as spirituality not as a response to God. That's the romantic version. We enter spirituality as a reaction to our lives, right? Because if we're comfortable and on the couch and everything's really cool, no one's thinking about affirmations right? No one's bothered with anything like this unless there's something going on that is pulling on our awareness, right? And also the nature of this particular journey, mine and yours, is that it's not personal either. Although you come here through your own experience and you're going to be working with emotional imprints that were imprinted on you through personal experience, childhood experience, etc., etc. These imprints have been carried from generation to generation to generation to generation. And the imprint that we individually work with is the same imprint that our family carries, is the same imprint that our great-grandparents and great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents carry. And they all have a story about how they received it. It's like, a couple of us could go to different parts of the world and receive the same tattoo. And we would come back together and go, look, we've got the same tattoo. Oh, but I got mine on, Malibu Beach, and I got mine in Hawaii, and I got mine in wherever. We all have a different story. And in our family situation, we all have different stories about our imprint. And that's why the story is of no use to us in integrating the imprint, right? Understanding only has a certain role in this work. And the understanding is really about the necessity to enter the emotional body. Once that's accomplished, then it's about entering a complete direct experience of the work. And so this weekend, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at the pathway of awareness, because it's really profound when we get the pathway of awareness. This is the pathway of awareness here. That's the only thing you ever need to get, right there, visually. Once you get it, by the end of the weekend, you'll see how it relates to family, to all the elements, to the nature of our experience, to our journey as humanity. It's all interrelated. But the most important thing is, although it's not personal, because it's not personal. Although when I'm in pain, it's very personal. But the pain is what it takes to get my attention, to bring me back into this body. Because most of us don't live in the body, right? But it's not personal. We will see that we're all participating in something that's unfolding collectively. And even this that we're doing here today, although you're here, on one level, you're here to get what you think you need and want, but actually we're here to receive what we require, and we're also here we're on a journey together. We were having this conversation just before. This is not my career, right? I won't be doing this very shortly, right? I'm on the countdown, so this is the 6th last one. It's not going to be necessary after this. The job is done. And this is what's profound about this work, is that, we had a bit of orientation early on this evening. Tonight we're having a bit of orientation too, right? Just to open things up a bit. Because we come in from a place of need and want. And actually, when we're in a place of need and want, we're closed to receiving what we require. We can't even recognize what we require when we're driven by our need and want. And it's completely natural that we're driven by need and want. We all are. That's what brings us to the work. That's the imprint. But actually, here on this weekend, we can receive what we require, right? And each of us will receive what we require. Also, what happens in this journey is that many other people are going to benefit from us sitting here. You'll notice I'm recording this. And I'm recording this because every time we enter this conversation, and it really is a conversation, although it doesn't look like it because I'm a Leo, and a Leo thinks a conversation is a monologue, right? But actually it is a conversation, because what I'm doing is I'm feeling where to go. And the way that I know where to go with this is because I'm feeling what's required here, and you sit here with your requirements. And I can feel, okay, we're not going to talk about that, okay, we're going to go here. And what we will do, what we will accomplish by the end of this weekend, is we will have gone that much deeper into this work. And there's a point of completion of this work. And that point of completion means it's now all available for anyone who wants it. Right? And this is what's been happening for the past 2 years. The past 2 years, I have been on a journey to dig this up and to put it in a format and a vocabulary in such a way that it can be made accessible to everybody. It's not about me coming here to actually do anything for you, although it looks like that. Actually, we're coming here, that's why there's so few people. There's so few people, right? It's not a room full of people. It's only who's required to be here to pull it out. And what we're doing is we're pulling something out of a portal. And we will see by the end of the weekend what a portal is, because to us a portal is a science fiction thing. But the reality is each one of us is a portal. And there's a way that the portal works. And what we're doing here is we're bringing out the mechanics of the portal so that every single human being who is called to can open their portal. Because that's what we're being asked to do now. And it's a very challenging job to open the portal, because in order to open the portal, one has to come face to face with where it's blocked. And where it's blocked is in the emotional realm. It's in the energetic realm. And that energetic blockage has been passed on from generation to generation to generation. We call it the human race, right? And the human race looks like this. Right. The one generation has a baton, right, which is the emotional condition that they are carrying. And what they do is they have children. And when they have children, they pass that baton on to the children through imprinting in the childhood. And the child takes the baton and runs. That's the human race, right? And then becomes a breeder and passes it on again, right? And it gets passed from generation to generation to generation until we get to a generation where we have enough awareness to go, hang on a moment. What is this? Oh, what the hell is this, right? And become awareness, bring it to awareness and actually transform it, impact it through our awareness. Because it's the only thing that has any transformational value is our awareness. So you can try and understand this mentally, but it's not about that. It's about just staying with it. There's actually nothing to do here, but just to stay with how we take this journey over the weekend. And we're going to look at various different aspects of what I am now calling the portal, which is funny because I called the website the Presence Portal a long time ago. But it's only now am I starting to realize what the portal is, right? And when we're told there is a portal that's going to be opening, and what we do, because we're so physically transfixed, we think the portal's out there somewhere. If I can just find the right physical place and go there and open, that's our science fiction consciousness. But actually every human being is a portal into the vibrational. And when the portal is open, we're in this world but not of it. And the portal technology has been given to us long time ago. The problem is we see it through the eyes of religious indoctrination. So because of our religions and largely because of our spiritual paths, we can't see the portal, right? So it's about stripping away all of that state of hypnosis. What we're dealing with here is a very deep state of hypnosis. And what we'll do here as we go through the weekend is awaken ourselves a little bit from the hypnosis, because you won't see anything the same again after this weekend, and that's only because certain levels will be peeled away, right? It's called getting ready to take off, right? And taking off is take it off, right? Right? And so the hypnosis looks like this. Have any of you ever seen a show in which you have a theatrical hypnotist, right? And the theatrical hypnotist invites two people up on stage. So let's say invites a man up onto stage and a woman up on stage and says, "May I have permission to hypnotize you?" And he gets permission. Then he hypnotizes the man and he says, "When you see the woman, you're going to see a jar of cookies. And all you want is a jar of cookies, right? You are desperate for a cookie, right? And then he says to the woman, when you look at the man, you're going to see a pot of tea. And you are desperate for a cup of tea, right? 2, 3, 4, go, right? Now the amazing thing is once those two individuals are hypnotized, they truly see, You know, he looks at her and he truly sees a jar of cookies. And she looks at him and she truly sees a teapot. And there's nothing you can say. He's like, I want a cup of tea, right? Trying to get, and she, no, I want a cookie, right? And there's nothing you can say to them in those circumstances that will convince them that it's not what they see, right? That's the one thing. Nothing you say will convince them that what they're looking at is not a pot of tea or a jar of cookies. The other thing is this: while they're in that state, they have absolutely no awareness that 5 minutes beforehand they were sitting in the seat over there and they had a whole life, an entire history, a complete awareness of a reality so massive that they couldn't recount it in days. And yet that entire reality is non-existent, right? And so our predicament is similar. And what we're going to see this weekend is how we behave in this hypnotic state. And the intent is not only to see that it's just a jar of cookies. It's not a jar of cookies. It's not a teapot, right? To take that level away. But not only that, but to make ourselves vulnerable to remembering what happened, what lies behind all of that, right? So the journey of the presence process is a means by which we can journey along the pathway of awareness. And so tonight what we'll just look at is the pathway. How many of you have been to a presentation before? Okay. So tonight let's just look, because we don't have a long time tonight, and let's just lay a context here and look at the pathway of awareness. The pathway of awareness one can think of as a journey through a portal. But we don't see it unfolding while we move through it into this experience of the world. It doesn't, because actually the portal is energetic. It's about energy in motion, right? And what comes through the portal is vibration. And when we come through the portal, we don't know we're coming through the portal. And once we arrive here in this world, we don't know that that's what happened. That's into the state of hypnosis. The moment we're an adult, we are in a state of hypnosis, whether we realize it or not, right? So the way the portal works is that there is a specific pathway that our awareness moves along to enter this, which we call the human experience, specifically the adult experience. And we can best see this by looking at a child. A child, when it comes out the womb, it doesn't come out the womb and say, you know, hanging upside down for 9 months is just freaky, because it doesn't have mental capacity. Nor does it come out the womb and say, let me start doing some yoga just to get my muscles moving again, right? I've been really not moving for a while and it's kind of stiff, right? No, because there's no physical awareness. There is a physical awareness that if you hurt the child, it'll scream, but it doesn't have the physical awareness to actually be able to just do this. It doesn't have that capacity. But if it comes out into this world, right, depending on the way it's born, if it's born in the conventional way, through the allopathic birth canal, right, it'll come out and it'll go, Rah! Right? And if it could speak, it would probably go, oh hell, right? Or it would smile and laugh depending on what type of birth it had. But what will happen is its first expression is emotional. Then it will start to use its emotions as a means to participate with and manipulate its experience. And only then will it gain the physical awareness to be able to get up and move around by itself. So the pathway is going from emotional to mental to physical. And this pathway can be seen even more clearly in what we call the 7-year cycle. In the first 7 years of our life, we are called children. And as children, we are energy in motion, right? And a parent knows that. A parent is someone who is a shepherd for energy in motion, right? Ask any parent. And energy in motion is just a way of saying emotion. In the first 7 years, it's as natural that we're seen as emotional beings, and that is that is accepted as our natural state. The moment we turn 7 years old, something happens. We get placed in a mental institution. And in that mental institution, we develop our mental matrix. That's the intent of going there. And when we're there, what we really learn is magic, right? We get led, when we're in a hypnotized state, we think that Harry Potter is magic. But Harry Potter isn't magic. Harry Potter is fantasy, right? We get taught real magic, and every single one of us are profoundly powerful master magicians. When we get in, the first thing we're taught when we enter the mental institution is to spell words, because words are the roots of all spells. So we spell words. And then when we can spell enough words, we get taught to put them in sentences. And we use those sentences to sentence ourselves and others to certain perceptual frameworks. And once we've learned enough sentences, then we get taught history. It get taught a story, right? Whose story? His story. His story. His story is the mental body's version of reality. And the moment I accept history that I'm told, I simultaneously accept the means by which that is delivered to me. And I start to use the same technique, telling stories, to tell my story. And if I tell a good enough story, the mystery, I end up on the therapist's couch telling them the story, right? So that's, by the time we're 14 years old, we have developed our mental matrix. We may build on it from that point, but it's pretty developed if we've entered the mental institution, right? Around 14, we then go through a physiological change, an actual physical shift in our being. And from that point, our experience in the world also starts to adjust, because the word do shows up, right? What are you going to do with your life? What are you doing, right? What we're doing really starts to count. Also, what happens is our relationship with human beings goes through a shift. We suddenly relate very differently with human. We become very aware of the physicality of other beings. In other words, before 14, before puberty, a child will say kissing. After puberty, a child will say kissing. What's that about? There's a complete shift, right? And then when we get to the age of 21, we usually have a celebration. And what we're celebrating is our arrival. We have now arrived in the adult world. And actually what's also happened is we have imprinted various aspects of our being with particular information, with data. And it's no different to downloading software into the hard drive of a computer. It is no different. And this software, but what happens is by the time we are 21 years old, we have no aware that we've downloaded software. All our attention is now on the hard drive and the way that the hard drive is constructed. That's all our awareness is on. And what we start doing from that point onwards, if we're uncomfortable, we attempt to change the hard drive, move the hard drive around, or redesign the hard drive in some way, the way we think about it. But we're completely unaware of the software. And that's because by the time we're adults, we are physically transfixed beings. We're in a trance that's fixed upon the world of matter. Everything matters to us. Everything is solid and dense to us, which is a strange thing, because if you look at a child that has just been born, whose eyes are open, wow, it's really trippy, right? And you can put something above their crib that just goes round and round, right? And they just go, whoa, man, whoa, whoa. It's like taking a cap of acid, right? They're hallucinating. What is actually going on is that the world doesn't matter yet. It literally doesn't matter. It only matters when one thing matters, everything matters. And that's why the first thing that usually matters is mother. That's why mother and matter are the same word. The moment mother matters, everything begins to matter. And then that child will grow up and become an adult and take a degree in physics, and then go into a laboratory and design a powerful microscope, right? Very powerful, and then look at matter and say, it's moving, it really is moving, right? But it's always been moving. It's just that we became physically transfixed by matter. And we're in a trance fixed upon the material plane to the point that we believe it is the causal point of our experience. Things matter a lot to us. So, for example, once we are an adult and we're in this transfixed state, the way we behave is this. If I want to change, as an adult, if I want to change the way I'm throwing this pen, as an adult, what I do is I come over here to where it's lying on the ground and I move it around. I'll show you again because it's really complex, right? If I want to change the way I'm throwing this pen as an adult, what I do is I come over here to where it's lying on the ground and I move it around in order to change the way I'm throwing it. In other words, if I don't like my job, I get another one. If I don't like my companion, I get rid of them and get another one. If I don't like my body, I cut pieces off and put other pieces on, right? If I don't like where I live, what country I'm in, I move to another country. But actually we know what happens when we behave like that. Because we can be in a job, and for example, I'm in my job and I hate it, right? And I go, I'm going to get another job, right? And so I go for interviews and I get another job. And on the last day at work, I say, I'm leaving. You people suck. You don't appreciate me. You don't give me the respect I deserve. So you know what? I found a better job. I'm going where I am going to be appreciated. Forget all of you, right? And off I go. And 3 months later, I'll be sitting at my desk saying, the people here don't appreciate me. These people really suck. You know, I don't get the respect I deserve here, right? When we make a shift in the physical world, when we change the physical aspect of our experience in order to change the quality, we get a quick high and it makes us feel as if something happened. But very soon, the reality sinks in that nothing ever changed. Nothing like a good shopping spree to show us that. Nothing like a brand new car to show us that, right? A brand new car is only great while the neighbors are going, ooh, wow, right? People, you're driving down the street and everyone's going, wow, right? But eventually everyone's got one, same one. No one notices and go, well, need to get a new model, right? It's the same with our relationships. Just need a brand new model every now and then, just update, right? Because we believe that the physical world is the causal point of the quality of our experience. And if we've done any deeper work than that, we may believe that the mental world is the causal point of the quality of our experience. That's when we're really mental, when we believe thought creates, right? When we believe thought creates, what we're actually saying is the mental realm is God, right? That God, whatever God is a thought, right? Which if you just contemplate that for a moment, you'll see how ridiculous it is. And we've all tried the I'm abundant one, right? I'm abundant. I'm really, really abundant. I'm super abundant. I'm Mr. Abundance. Abundance is my middle name. My parents wanted to call me Abundance when I was born, right? If you actually take the letters of my name and jumble them up, and they come out spelling abundance. That's how abundant I am. But I don't have any money in my bank, right? And no matter how much I say that, nothing ever changes, right? Because, and also we believe that positive thinking can impact the quality of our experience. So there's the whole big positive thinking movement. But what we don't realize is positive thinking is a reaction. It's not a response to anything. Transformation or changing the quality of an experience only comes through responding to the experience, not reacting to it. And we only think positively when the shit is hitting the fan, right? We don't think positively. If I'm sitting on the couch having a groovy time, I'm not going to sit there and go, what do I feel like doing today? I think I'll do some positive affirmations. No. We only think positively when things are going badly. It's a reaction. And because it's a reaction, it accomplishes nothing. It's also an effect. See, what we can't see when we're an adult is that the physical and mental aspect of our experience is the effect of something. It's the effect, not the cause. And what happens when we're physically transfixed, we're not actually living in the physical world, although it appears that way. We live in the mental world. And we look at the physical world. And we tell a story about it. And based on the story, we take physical action. And that loop goes round and round and round and round. Those are the worlds that we occupy, right? But those worlds are effects. They're effects of a causal place. And the causal place, while we are in that place, is the emotional body. And while we try to impact the cause by changing the effect, we have a word for that. It's called ineffectual behavior. Ineffectual behavior, right? It's that, what it is, it's the, in relationships, well, in life experience, we would call it déjà vu. I'm sure I've been here before. And the Talking Heads did a great video. Is this the same as it ever was? Is it the same as it ever was? Is this my life? How did I get here, right? And when it comes to relationships, we call it déjà vu, right? Haven't I been with this person before? This is the same person I was with last time. They just look different, right? In fact, this is my mommy. This is my daddy, right? I just married my parents, right? And that keeps going round and round and round, like Groundhog Day, giving us an opportunity to awaken to something. That something stays the same over and over and over and repeats itself almost exactly every 7 years. Each core issue, boom, 7 years, boom, 7 years, comes up. But we can't see that while we're physically transfixed, because the causal point isn't physical, nor is the causal point mental. Although once we can start to recognize the causal point, we can see how the mental and physical reflect it, right? So what we can't see is that in the first 7 years of our life, we get imprinted with data. Data gets downloaded into we can call it energy in motion body, energy body, right? Just think of it as an emotional body. Nothing super fantastic. It's just how the way energy moves or energy doesn't move, right? And the best element to think of and we've already associated with emotion, we associate water with emotion. And we've done so for millennia, because water and emotions behave the same and they have the same intelligence. Right? And if we want to really comprehend how the emotional body operates, it's the same as the way water flows. So what happens is, in the first 21 years of our life, if we think 7, 14, 21, we are going through an experience called imprinting. If we want to upload it, downloading of software. And that software is downloaded firstly into the emotional, then into the mental, and then into the physical. And once we reach 21, it's there and we're running, right? And after that, there is no free will. There is only the will to be free, right? And if you have enough of that, then you may come to this revelation of what's going on here. But there is no free will, because when you're with someone long enough, if you're with someone long enough, you know how to just go, bap, you know, bap, bap, right? Where's the free will? Because if you can do that to your companion, what do you think the politicians can do to you? What do you think the advertisers can do to you? What do you think the religions can do to you? Because that's the level they operate on. They all operate on the emotional level, right? They all operate on the emotional level. The one when things are hard, the one who makes you feel good gets your vote. Simple as that, right? Of course, if they want to change who's going to get in, they can just make you really afraid. Then you might vote for somebody else because you're really afraid and you think that that person can protect you. But actually, what's going on underneath is just manipulation of emotional states. And until those emotional states are integrated, everyone behaves robotically. Everybody behaves. Right? Once the emotional realm becomes obvious to us and what that's about, an emergency becomes an opportunity to awaken. In other words, it's no longer an emergency, it's now an opportunity to emerge and see. Right? But we have to go in and see it from that point. So, let's look at imprinting. Imprinting commences in the womb, and we enter the womb roughly 2 months into the pregnancy. We don't enter the womb straight away. First of all, the vehicle has to be prepared. And you will know exactly the moment when a child or awareness enters the womb, when the vibrational enters, because it brings imprinting in with it, right? And the moment the fingerprints start being formed, that's when the awareness is entering. And that's roughly 2 months into the pregnancy cycle. And so we're in the womb for 7 months. And by the way, the Russians figured this out when they developed Carillion photography. They figured this out a long time ago, that the awareness only enters the womb 2 months. They actually photographed it happening long before we even had any awareness of it. They were already like, hey, put these kids with dolphins and see what happens, you know. So we enter the womb roughly 2 months into pregnancy. We're in the womb for 7 months. That's our first 7-month cycle, and we call that the vibrational cycle, because the resonance of vibration is not a being, it is being. And in the womb, there is nothing to do. One can only be, right? And it's rough when they're being for 7 months, right? Upside down and all of that stuff, right? So in the womb, what happens is, during the womb, there is a transmission that takes place, right? The mission that's going to put you into your trance, the transmission, right? And that transmission is delivered through the portal of the mother, but is actually taking into account everything that's happening around the mother, with the father, with everything around in the world. And this is what's very hard for the mental body to comprehend, that the universe can so deliberately set up a course of events as to systematically tattoo something into us. But everyone's journey through the womb, through childhood, up to the age of 21 is absolutely deliberate. Can't see it from the mental. The mental can't know, that's just too much, right? But deliberate means, the word deliberate contains the word liberate. It's deliberate. The keys for our liberation are in those cycles, right, implanted into us. So let's say we're going to look at an imprinting event that takes place every 6 years along the 7-year cycle, because imprinting is done very systematically, right? And we're going to begin with the womb, right? And in the womb, 6 years along a 7-year cycle, if we enter the womb at 2 months, would be 8 months into the pregnancy. 8 months into the pregnancy is equal to 6 years along a 7-year cycle. 8 months into pregnancy, my mother and father have a big freak out, right? They have a fight. He walks out on my mother, right? My mother feels abandoned. And that experience of abandonment is a concept. It's a spell that we've learnt. Actually, underlying it are 3 primary spells, which we call fear, anger, and grief. These are the ways we spell particular types of energetic circumstances. We spell some fear, some anger, some grief. These are the only 3 spells we need concern ourselves with in awakening from the hypnosis, right? And so in the abandonment, there's fear, anger, and grief, and that is reflected from my mother and father's fight, and him leaving, and she feeling abandoned, and he feeling abandoned on all levels. I, in the womb, receive that vibrational transmission through my mother, because everything my mother goes through in any given moment is reflected by her heartbeat, the temperature of her body, the vibration of her voice, the blood pumping, the way she breathes. Every aspect of her being is a vibrational incubator going, right? And it's reflecting whatever state she is in and what's going on around her. And that vibration is also impacting me. And that actually is a transmission. If I'm in the womb, it's happening deliberately. It's not happening by accident. There is no, I shouldn't have done that. It's happening deliberately, right? And that's the first transmission. And that doesn't impact the vibrational. It's just the vibrational is used to transmit it. You can't change the vibrational. The vibrational is unchangeable, right? Then we move into the first 7-year cycle. 6 years along the 7-year cycle is 6 years old. At 6 years old, my parents have come together and they've tried to make it work. But the fact is, they can't stand each other, right? Because they married each other. They made each other fulfill each other's needs and wants, which means they turned each other into each other's parents, and nobody wants to sleep with their parents. So it's over, right? They can't stand each other. They want to run away and go and do that to somebody else, right? And so what happens is they get a divorce when I'm 6 years old, right? Now, as a 6-year-old, I have no concept for divorce because I haven't gone through a mental institution yet, and I haven't learned to spell that word, right? I also don't have the physical vehicle to contain the experience of divorce, so it's meaningless to me. I am in the emotional realm still. The emotional realm is governed by felt perception. I feel things. And that abandonment that takes place as they get divorced, again, has within it a salad of fear, anger, and grief. And I feel that. And that impacts my emotional body. Because these feelings are so uncomfortable, what I do is I resist them. And when I go into resistance, that changes the way my energy in motion moves, and actually it stops some of them moving, right? And that causes energetic patterns which in turn become uncomfortable. And we'll look at more of that later. Then again, we go to the mental area, right? From 7 to 14, 6 years along that cycle is 13 years old. At 13 years old, I already have abandonment issues rising up as one of my core issues. I have a best friend in the neighborhood. It's not my best friend. He's my best ever friend, right? And my best ever friend's parents get transferred out of the neighborhood. They get transferred out of the state. And my best friend is gone. Within 2 weeks, he's gone, right? The only friend I had, right? And suddenly I feel abandoned. I go through an experience of abandonment. Yes, there is an emotional signature. There is fear, anger, and grief. But now I'm in the mental institution. And so what I'm doing is I'm telling stories about everything. And around that event, I tell a story about what this means to me and about the world I live in. And that story impacts the matrix of my mental body. It determines what that matrix looks like. We call it belief systems, right? Then I go forward another, from 14 to 21, I'm now entering the physical realm of my experience, right? And at 20 years old, which is 6 years along that cycle, I meet this girl. And I have abandonment issues. And because I have abandonment issues, I ask her to marry me 3 days after we meet, right? And so she probably goes into hiding, but anyway agrees to marry me because she's a little bit afraid of me maybe, right? So on the wedding day, I'm standing there, right? And you've all come to the wedding, and I think this is going to be the best day of my life because getting married is going to solve everything, right? And I'll live happily ever after. And what happens is she doesn't show up, right? And I get ditched at the altar, which is kind of embarrassing because I already opened up some of the presents, right? And so yes, there's an emotional undercurrent to this experience. And yes, there is a story going on, but now my focus is really on the physical world. I'm standing here looking like an idiot. You're sitting over there. I invited you all. I've got to give the presents back. We spent all this money. How dare she do this to me? Right? It becomes really about what's going on in the physical world. Once I reach 21, I'm fully imprinted. And now what will happen is that imprint will continue every 7 years to surface, right? So we can go again another 7 years just to take a look at that. I'm now 27 years old, right? And I've worked really hard because I've got abandonment issues. I got my degree early. I did really well. I got a really good job, right? And at that job, I dress up really smart. I wear the right clothes. I schmooze with the right people, right? I work late, right? And what happens is one night at a cocktail party, my boss comes over to me and he's a little bit drunk, right? And he says, you know, Frank, you're just fantastic. I just watched you. You just work like a dog. I mean, this company's riding on your back. You're just fabulous, right? And you know, George is leaving at the end of the month. He's one of our directors. And I've decided you're getting this job. You're the man. You're the man, right? And of course, because I have abandonment issues, I believe him, even though I don't even have the experience to take that job, right? So the next day I go and tell everyone at work, I got the job. I got George's job when he's gone. But comes the day of the promotion announcement, and the job goes to somebody else, right? And I can't believe it, right? It's a trauma for me. And that night I go to the bar, and I sit there, I'm on like my 4th double whiskey, right? And I feel abandoned by my job, by my clothes, by my degree, by my boss. You know, I'm sitting there, and the person behind the bar comes to me and says, Frank, what's going on with you? I say, I don't know. I just don't know why this keeps happening to me. I mean, started when I was young. My parents got divorced, right? And I had this really good friend. It was like my best friend ever, and he's just gone. Never heard from him again. And then I met this girl, and I just so loved her. And I knew that we'd be so happy, and she never came to the altar, right? I've never been able to look at a woman the same again, right? And then I got this job, and I was going to be the director, and I didn't get it. And I don't know why this keeps happening to me, right? And as I tell the story, to me, it looks like these are all separate events. They have nothing to do with each other. Because I'm a physically transfixed being. And the nature of the physical world is just as much a magician, right? Every day, people stand in a different place, wear different clothes, slightly different climate. It looks like it's a new day, right? And so the physical world keeps changing its form all the time, and so it always looks like I'm having a new experience, especially if I'm totally physically transfixed, right? And that's because I don't have felt perception, right? And felt perception shuts down, for a boy, felt perception shuts down around the age of 7. For a girl, it shuts down around about the ages of 13, 14, it starts shutting down. That's why 13, 14-year-old girls are more mature than boys, because maturity is emotional. And that's why we have men running the world who behave like 7-year-olds, right? Because of that emotional level of maturity. The emotional body does not mature unless it's tended to. And from the time we leave childhood, very few of us enter any situation in which our emotional capacity is of any consequence. No one, when you sit down for a job interview, they go, but what's your feeling content like? Huh? Do you think you can feel deeply enough to do this job? Right? Right? Forget it. Are you physically capable, and do you have the mental aptitude, and that's it. In fact, if you're in business, better you don't feel what's going on, because it's very hard to manipulate others for profit and do so with an open feeling body. It's impossible. It's very hard to rape the earth and have an open feeling body. It's very hard to live the way we live and feel. It's very uncomfortable, right? And so we don't have felt perception by the time we're adults. Felt perception is the capacity to feel the consequence of my presence in the world. The consequence of my presence in the world. In other words, to feel the consequences of my thoughts, words, and deeds before I even put them into play. In other words, if I decide I'm going to hurt you, I will immediately start feeling hurt. If I'm going to, manipulate you, I will feel manipulated. That's what felt perception is. And there is a saying, where there is love, there is no law. What that means is, when we have felt perception, when we're open to the heart, then we don't need laws to tell us how to behave. Because the heart lets us know exactly what the consequences of our presence is. But when we don't have felt perception, we have to have laws, because we cannot feel the consequence of our behavior, of our thoughts, words, and deeds, right? So Frank, sitting by the bar, has no felt perception, right? So let's say, as he's telling the story, as he's about to tell the story, I come up behind him with a syringe full of felt perception, right? And I go, right? And he starts to tell his story. What will happen is he won't analyze his story. He won't even physicalize it as he tells it. He'll start to realize something, because felt perception and our realize are the same thing. Right? And what he will realize is, although the physical events of the divorce and the friend leaving the neighborhood and getting ditched at the altar and not getting the promotion, although the physical events look different, although they contain the same metaphor, and although the story that he has told about each of those events is somewhat different but contains the same theme, right? What's identical is the emotional signature underlying each of those events. Underlying the divorce, the friend leaving the neighborhood, the ditching at the altar and not getting the job is the exact same feeling. And what it looks like is that the event, to a physically transfixed adult, what it looks like is that the event is causing the feeling. But it's not that at all. It's actually the feeling surfacing as the event. That feeling is going to surface every 7 years. And when it surfaces, it will contain a different story and it will contain a different event. What the event is a reflection of the feeling, right? Because by the time we're adults, the world no longer happens through us. It happens to us. That's the nature of being physically transfixed. We perceive the world happening to us. That's why when we're uncomfortable, we try to change the world. We don't bother about anything about ourselves. We don't even know it's going on. Because felt perception or emotional body awareness is an awareness at the causal point of the human experience. This is the causal point of our experience, of the quality of our experience. It's the causal point. And if this is shut down, we can't feel the causal point. We can only see the effect. We can only experience the effect. So, how are we doing time-wise?
9:06.
After 9.
A little after 9, okay. Does anyone need to take a pee break? Thought so. So let's take a 5-10 minute break. Maybe want to go outside and get some fresh air, and we'll come back and carry on.
Michael, where's the nearest water?
There's a lake over that way.
Downstairs?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Out front.
I'm not sure. Someone here will.
Thank you much.